Hello, my name is Carla Fernandes. Welcome to Afrolis Videocast, the place where we listen to Black and racialized women from all over the world. We are based in Lisbon, but we seek to bridge our experience and inspire one another to keep moving forward. My guest today is Aminata Kalokoh. Welcome, Aminata.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Aminata is a member of the Association of Visitors to Immigration Detainees, AVID, acting as the development coordinator. AVID is a national charity in the UK that supports volunteer visitors to people in immigration detention. Alongside her role at AVID, she is a member of the Community Advisor Board with the University of Oxford Centre for Criminology. Aminata completed her MBA from the University of Sunderland. She advocates for positive change in society, especially on immigration and equality. Aminata is also collaborating with the network of International Community of Psychologists on a project looking at the role of psychologists in the border industrial complex. Lots of areas here. Thank you for being so open to come and share your experience.
Thank you.
And I would like to start by asking you to tell us about your experience with detention and immigration.
I moved to the UK several years ago, and to me, the idea of detention never existed in my mind, or neither did I know that these centres actually exist in the UK.
Just a pause. You moved from where to the UK?
I moved from the Gambia to the UK. So, like I said earlier on, this was a completely new thing to me. And obviously, when you move from one country to the other, there are certain things that you have to go through. So processes, I'll call them. So the process of trying to sort of regularize your stay in the UK. And it was during that time, I was then taken and detained in one of the UK's detention centres. And for me, it was quite strange because, one, I never knew they existed. And two, I wouldn't have thought in a million years that the UK of all countries would have systems like that. Systems of repression, I'll say. Given that when you look at the human rights status of the UK, we tend to see them as one that uphold human rights, as one that are very quick to point a finger at other countries about their human rights issues. So for me, it was a big shock.
Mm-hmm. And you currently work on a project on gender and immigration and detention. Is it different for women to be in detention centers? I mean, of course, gender is not only women, but is there a difference among genders in this situation?
There is a big difference. Like I'd say, I am against the system altogether, be it male or female. But when we talk about women, we realize that a lot of these women have gone through a lot of things, being domestic violence, being sex trafficked, and a lot of many other things that you could think of as a result of being the dominant gender. So obviously the male gender is always more powerful. So a lot of these women being locked up in detention centers is re-traumatizing to them because they've already lost their dignity. They've already lost so many things, and they've chosen to run to seek for help against what they are fighting against. So to then lock them up in these centers, it's almost like them reliving the same issues that they're seeking to leave behind them. So, yes.
And talking about relieving this, why did you decide to keep working in this traumatic environment? Because you, in a way, are also relieving a situation that can be read as traumatic, of course.
Yes, there are. It's got its own side, obviously. Being that I've got the experience and also working within the sector. But for me, it's more about speaking out. It's more about letting people know that these systems exist. And also as a Black woman, we're very, we're prone to look at things in different dimensions. So we're prone to look at things like being detained means you're cursed.
Oh.
Right? Cause, or it's a punishment for maybe doing something wrong. That is from a cultural aspect.
We give it another dimension.
Yes, and a lot of times people, especially with Black women, when they're being detained, they try not to seek for help. They don't want relatives to know that they're being detained. They don't want friends to know that they're being detained. All for the same reason, like they would be looked upon as a curse. And I want Black people to speak out and realize that it's not a curse to be detained. You're being detained based on a racialized ideology that had existed for so many, many years. You're being detained for being Black. It's a system of oppression. It's a system that has always existed, and we need to fight that system. And without us speaking out, the message is never going to get out there. So hence, for me, it's two parts of it. It's the message. It's changing the narrative of how people see detention. And also, it's giving that sense of hope to the people that are in there, because it's a very difficult situation to find yourself. It's a very difficult challenge because you're fighting against a state that believes that what they're doing is right. But for me, it's that one word of hope that we seek to live on. So by giving these women that hope to say, it might be bad today, but tomorrow will be better, is what we have always lived on. And I believe it's what our ancestors have lived on. Hence, today we can talk about the abolishment of slavery. If they hadn't persisted, today I might not be sitting here talking to you. I might be a slave working in some land. So for me, that's the reason why I kept on going with this.
You said that it's important for the detainees to see detention differently, mostly Black and African people. Mm-hmm. But you also look upon the system itself as something that should not exist. So, which is understandable. What would be the alternatives for that? Firstly, you can really talk about why they shouldn't exist, prisons and this detention centers, which is the same principle, and which alternatives are being presented. We know that Angela Davis also talks about this. There are other thinkers that talk about this, Ruthie Gilmore as well. So
there are two distinct things here, but they have the same negative effect on the people. So you talk about detention, it's people that have not committed any crime at all, whatsoever. And all they're doing is seeking help. I'm here, I'm seeking refuge, right? And then this is a place where they put someone that has done nothing wrong. And especially in the UK, there's no time limit on how long you find yourself in detention.
Yes, of course. I was mixing detention and prison.
Yes,
Sorry.
and then we talk about prison. Okay, someone has committed some sort of crime, but they go in knowing when they're coming out, right? But the two systems are not fit for purpose. You lock someone in a detention center, and then you get them out within 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, as however long it goes in the UK. They come out without their problem not being solved because they don't come out with the documents that they need to go and start a fresh life. They come out still waiting on the state to solve that same problem. So for me, it's not fit for purpose. We talk about prison. This is someone that you've locked up, fair enough. You're saying for a reason, but sometimes we have to seek other alternatives like forgiveness. Sometimes there's strategies where the victim can actually sit with the perpetrator and discuss and ask, why have you done what you've done? Obviously, it can be difficult sometimes, given whatever offense the perpetrator has caused, but we can't get to a middle point because it's the perpetrator having to accept that they have done something wrong, and the victim accepting and forgiving. So that's one alternative to the prison side of things. Also, it's rehabilitating. If someone goes to prison, there's no point serving how many years of sentence and them coming out without being rehabilitated, without you teaching them how to come out and be part of the society again and live their daily lives as not as every other person is. So we have to look at that alternative of rehabilitating people that have been imprisoned. In terms of, so at the end of the day, one major alternative that would work for the two systems is that of community-based approach, where we allow the community to come in and help and not just go by a rigid system that the state wants to take, but rather allow community groups to come in and find solutions, discuss these issues, and find solutions like we're doing right now. Obviously,
yeah, as part of what AVID is doing.
Yeah, like what AVID is doing, and obviously, my reason for being here also is in Lisbon is to take part in the Feminist No Border Conference, and these are topics like we're talking about abolitionist care. And these are topics that are very difficult to talk about, but we need to talk about them. And how we talk about them is by coming together and sharing our ideas, our experiences, and then finding solutions to these problems.
Yeah, one of maybe the solutions that you are working on is the role of psychologists in the border industrial complex. How does this look like? You're working on this right now.
Yes. So what we're looking at is how, because we feel psychologists have got a big role to play in obviously bringing that community side of things. But what we've noticed, not all psychologists, what we've noticed is some of them tend to aid the system. They tend to help the system. And that's a very difficult line to tread on, because your role as psychologist is to actually listen to the victims and understand their pain, and as psychologists come together and find solutions to these problems. But if you find yourself, which so many of them tend to be within these centers of imprisonment, centers of detention, it almost feels like the longer they are in there, they almost feel as part of the system. Part of the system because then a conflict of interest comes in, a conflict of role comes in. So I've seen in detention centers where a psychologist is meant to come in and analyze someone's mental health, but then they're switching over to becoming interpreters. So there's that conflict of roles here that shouldn't exist. So our work here is to actually look into these areas and encourage psychologists more to be more of a community solution to this problem and not being part of the system.
And there are many ways to make the message come across. And you are also working on an animation to give voice to people's experiences in detention. Why did you choose this format?
So with animation, it's all about, obviously, it's a video content. Sometimes you can watch a movie, you don't know the language, but you can resonate with what is going on. You can tell what the movie is all about. And in these days of social media, it's a quicker way to get message out. So for us, we wanted to reach out to so many people as we can through the work of arts, because some people use art to express how they feel, not necessarily in words, but art is another way of expressing anger, happiness, all the emotions, really. So that's hence the reason why we chose that format. We thought it would be best to be able to reach out to everyone by using that format. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Aminata Kalokoh, for being here and for this wonderful work that you're doing. And thank you for listening to us. My name is Carla Fernandes. This was Afrolis Videocast. Do subscribe to our channels. Thank you and see you next time.